Mhm. All right, we're just going to wait a few minutes to let people join our conversation. I know some of you are seeing Zencity right now, what we're going to talk about. I'll explain that in a minute. It's actually kind of surprising. It's kind of a story out of Guilford, but it's really a national story. We'll talk about that and what it means. I think it raises some serious issues about privacy and the role of government, but we'll talk about that. So it is for a little bit early, but 4 o'clock on. We tend to get a bunch of email questions in just before the podcast starts. So if there's anything here that we have to address, I will answer that. Okay, so good afternoon. It's 4:01 on Thursday. I did not have a podcast yesterday, so thanks for joining us today. Just somebody who's listening, make sure you can hear us and our sound comes through fine. We want to thank our sponsor, By the Sea Day Spa. If you are, it's certainly that time of year where we're looking at gift cards. If you are afraid to go out or don't want to go out, By the Sea now, you can go on their website and get gift cards and print them out at home. So that might be an option for you. So that's something new from them that they've just offered this year, especially due to COVID. It might be an easier way. So most well-known spa in town by far, the largest by far. And if you're interested, check them out. So a couple of topics for today was this issue of Zencity. And if you don't know what Zencity is, it is a platform. And if you don't know, you may want to take a look at it or look it up, but I'll walk you through it. It's a kind of like a aggregating tool that goes through the town, looks at social media, looks at other forums where people can comment and speak or what have you, share their opinions. Not necessarily official channels, but social media channels. Aggregates that information and then gives that information back to elected officials. Now, from a business perspective, some of these things make sense, right? It makes sense to sell things to municipalities because they have money. States and towns have money. You can go and convince them this is going to help you govern better. This is going to help you have better access to the public and respond more to the issues that the public may have. So, for example, if everybody talks about Main Street having too many potholes, the town can adjust to that. And that's what they'll sell a town on. If your red flag went up when you heard that, of another level of government interfering with our lives and Big Brother kind of thing. Well, that's what happened to me too. And this idea that we can now go to social media, aggregate what people are talking to. We've all seen those word charts where there's 1,000 words and some are larger than others, the ones that are talked about the most. That type of information can be given back to a town. Who's talking about it, what area they're in, what are the big issues in town. In a perfect world, the thought process is that an elected official can now get ahead of an issue. If we foresee a potential issue at an event, we can get ahead of that. We can decrease the number of negative comments. You can use this for a company as well. From a sales standpoint, you go to a town, you sell this for $12,000, $15,000, $20,000, whatever it is, and they get these reports on a regular basis. Now, we have not confirmed what we saw. I need to open this up. Yesterday was at the Simply Guilford Facebook page. I'm going to open this up now. Received a letter on town letterhead asking them to be a part of Zencity and be part of this program. And that's what kind of set me off when it came to thinking of this is this proper in any way, shape, or form? And so the question that I have to have, and not just for Guilford, if it's Guilford's doing this, but if any town is doing this, according to Zencity's website, they have clients throughout the United States. In fact, one example they give has to do with, I'll read this to you, how the village of Bolingbrook used data to track and increase mask wearing compliance. And what they did is they went on social media and studied social media and looked at how much people were talking about a specific event. And then the town got that, and they can warn people that they have to have their masks on. Now, that's especially sensitive now because there are people who are on both sides of that issue. And we're not taking a side on whether you should wear masks or not. The question is, should the government be analyzing our social media to make decisions? The problem, more than anything else, and they went to Simply Guilford. Apparently, Simply Guilford said, no, we're not going to comply with this and do it. And if that's true, bravo to them. And bravo to any social media page that's run by anyone who says, no, we're not allowing a third-party application hired by the government to manage or dictate what is written or try to evaluate what is written on our pages. And there's a few reasons for this. Now, first of all, any government doing this has to start reassessing what they believe the role of government is. If you're a representative of a town and of people, and you need help from some algorithm to decide what the issues are in Branford or Guilford or Madison or the town you represent, you shouldn't be representing anybody. Step down. Don't be mayor. Don't be first selectman. Don't be representative. If you need help from an algorithm, from a third-party app to do it, then you don't know the area you represent, first of all. Secondly is this. Mark Zuckerberg is in front of Congress on a regular basis. He is grilled on a regular basis over Russian interference in elections and who's buying ads in elections and who are fake accounts, who are bot accounts, what influence can be done on social media. And it's him, and it's Twitter, and it's Instagram, and it's Snapchat, and all these different sites. We have TikTok, which is run by a Chinese company. These are constant conversations. So now a town would consider contracting with a third-party app to measure all of those websites and report back to the town? How does that make sense? The other major issue with this is I run Branford 7 Facebook page. Other moderators run whatever, Branford this page and Branford artwork or Indian Neck page or whatever it is. We choose as moderators at times to delete comments. There are some things we don't allow. And many of those I've deleted comments that were racist and homophobic. I've also deleted people who were just assholes, just like constantly commenting, constantly arguing with people. And now you'd have me as an editor of a site that is then used to inform an elected official. Well, nobody elected me. Nobody chose me as a leader. I'm glad you listen in. I'm glad you read what I write. I hope that I have earned your trust when it comes to writing accurately and intelligently, what have you. But I'm not an elected official. I'm not on a ballot. But I would have a say in whose voice those elected officials would hear. The concern here, I'm going to read the letter. Give me 1 second to pull this up. It was on the Simply Guilford page. Going a little slow here, but I'll find it in a second. And the letter from on Guilford Town Hall. Give me 1 second. Oh, by the way, Guilford's new team name is the Grizzlies. They got rid of Indians. That's interesting. For some reason, I can't see this popping up now. I don't know why. Oh, Town of Guilford, dated December 2nd. Dear Guilford Facebook group admin, the Town of Guilford is partnered with the company called Zencity. Zencity's mission is to help bridge the gap between residents and their towns. They aim to make sure residents' voices get heard by local government so that the town management can make relevant decisions based on actual citizen needs. Zencity does this by collecting conversations about the town from different sources and analyzing what were the key issues that people cared about, were happy with, or were unhappy with. They then share the aggregated information back with town management. All conversations collected are completely anonymous and aggregated. No names are mentioned. I don't know how you possibly do that. There's a name attached to everything on social media. You can read more about it, and we have a link that we've taken a look at. Zencity is interested in helping our town understand the big picture of what people care about in this town, and since this group is super influential in the Guilford community, first of all, it's hard to believe that anybody in government wrote this group is super influential in the Guilford community. But the point is crazy. This company, whether Guilford is using them or not, Zencity, makes money going on social media, aggregating your comments, and giving it back to elected officials. Holy shit. That's crazy. That's absurd. If any elected official said, yeah, we should do that, somebody's got to get on this and say, get the hell out of here now. That's not a good idea. It's not a good idea to go through people's social media pages, aggregate the information, and then hand it back. Secondly, the information they're taking is significantly impacted by the moderator of that site. In Brantford, we have Wayne Cook, who dominates meetings, and he used to comment like crazy on my pages. A lot of the comments are inappropriate. They've been what have you. Certainly harassing. They never stop, whatever. We blocked a lot of those. There were other people with that Parkside area. We blocked racist, sexist, disgusting, ridiculous. So now I'm a factor in determining what comments get to elected officials. That's absurd. On top of that, if you write a letter to the first selectman, that's covered by the Freedom of Information Act in general. If you write a letter about your child or some reasons, there are some reasons they don't have to. But if you write a letter complaining to the town, I, as a journalist, as a resident, as anybody, can request that letter. And we can do that. And if we're not giving it to it, we have legal rights to go to the Freedom of Information Act Commission and request that. Now, I've done that before. Nothing here addresses that. So instead of going through proper protocol, sending an email, sending a letter directly to your elected official, a town can hire a third party to take information off social media, which is highly edited, highly determined by the moderators of those pages, highly impacted by fake accounts, highly impacted by a very small group of people that comment incessantly, and then take that information and go back and sell it to an elected official. How drunk do you have to be to think that's a good idea? What are you smoking that is so amazing that you thought even for a second that was a good idea? The comments, they list Meriden as their client. I didn't see that yet, but I'll take a look. They said 180 different towns or something along those lines. Stanford, they stripped the data before passing it on. It's simply an ethics decision. Okay. Talk about Big Brother. I agree. They do the same what Amazon, Google, and Facebook do. They too buy and sell the information you gather. I'm not saying it's right. Just saying, listen, that's absolutely correct. There's no question. But what Amazon, Google, and Facebook do, don't sell it back to an elected official who's using your own tax dollars to pay for it. They don't do that. So Amazon takes your information, what you clicked on, what you're searching for, and it's automatically out there, sold to Google. Google then takes ads for that thing. We've all seen this, where we searched for an air fryer on Amazon, and 19 seconds later, 47 pop-ups come on for an air fryer. And if you think I'm talking without experience there, I've been searching for an air fryer for the last week or so. But you have an elected official saying, here's money from taxpayers. I looked at some reviews. They said it was like $12,000 to $14,000 a few years back. I'm guessing it's a little bit more now. So let's say $20,000 of taxpayer money, so probably an annual fee, that goes to this company. Go out and analyze what all of my constituents are saying on social media and report it back to me. Holy shit. Wow. Who thought that was a good idea? And who didn't stop to think that we are, as a government, as a US government, we are constantly questioning the actions of Zuckerberg and the leaders of, what's the name on the guy on Twitter? I forgot his name. But all these guys, Jeff Bezos at Amazon, we're questioning them constantly on the information they're collecting. What are they doing with the information they're collecting? If you haven't realized it yet, if you get something for free online, in general, you are the product, right? Your information is what's being used to go to an advertiser to bombard you with ads. So you're getting it, you're not paying money for it, but you are paying for it, and people are paying for that information. That's how it works. But in this case, elected officials paying this company to provide information. They're going to paint it in the light of, well, this will help you decide what, potholes to close. It would also tell you heavy criticisms. Do you then use that information during election season? How could you not? If you know one area has one particular issue in your election season, you're going to go address that because you're in election season. Should taxpayers expect their own money, their own tax revenue, to be used by elected officials to essentially spy on what they write on social media? Does that make sense? So I don't know. I haven't been able to confirm yet, and I will call Guilford and find out if Guilford's participating in this nonsense. In the letter, I'm going to pull it up again. You can do this by going to Simply Guilford. They ask the Simply Guilford page to participate. But here's the problem there. The moderators of the Simply Guilford page can delete comments. And we also, myself, as the owner of Brantford 7, as someone on the Union Neck page, I can initiate conversation. So if I have an issue that I'm passionate about, that I want to see something done, I can make sure I initiate a conversation about that every morning. An algorithm picks up all the comments, puts that issue front and center. Here's the issue most talked about in the last 2 weeks on Brantford-based sites. I have the biggest site, Brantford 7, I think is the biggest online audience in Brantford. And therefore, I would run to the top. I can manipulate this so incredibly easily. And then you have taxpayers paying these companies to feed this information back to elected officials. Somebody did a great sales job. Some salesmen for Zencity should get a raise. Because if they were able to convince elected officials to agree to this and somehow not think, wow, this is absurd, that's an amazing sales job. It's an incredible sales job. And if this is true, Matt Hoey should have to answer why he's allowing this or why he fell for this. That's absolutely crazy. And the moderators of Simply Guilford said, good morning, old school. This has come to my attention a few days ago. I will not be participating in this. There's no reason why a company should be able to go into our group at any time to see what we are posting. I want to make a better Guilford and listen to the townspeople. I would always love to hear everyone's input on this. Be nice. And there's comments after that. I couldn't agree more. If you as an elected official can't manage to figure out what the issues are in your own municipality and for the people that you represent, then you shouldn't be electing anybody. But if you think taking their tax dollars and paying a third party to aggregate information from social media pages, which are as biased as it possibly gets. So you have the bias of the social media page itself, Facebook, Twitter, what have you, what they show up in their algorithms. You have the bias which exists of every moderator, whether it's me or you or anybody else who runs any page. Our biases, the people we delete. You also have the issues that we initiate. Any local community leader or anybody can go on there and post the same issue, rile up people, mislead, lie, what have you, get the most amount of comments, and it would have the most amount of traction and show up significantly on these algorithms and on these reports. And then be given to an elected official, paid for with tax dollars, who can then use that information in any way they see fit, including for elections, to go for or against political enemies, what have you. Because as we all know, issues for and against are often easily identifiable. We knew when Jamie Cosgrove ran for office, he supported Costco at 56. At that time, Andy Campbell was against him. It was for exit 53. We could have seen where the overall discussion was going towards. by seeing who supported 53, who supported 56. Now, we happen to know, because I cover news and we heard people talking, all the support was for 56. But should a government be using tax dollars to pay for that information, to then use it? That's absurd. If anybody's listening from Guilford, if any leaders are listening from Guilford, get rid of this shit. This isn't good. The Volker Herman, if you strip it down, it's just a tool that replaces the communication manager going to 510 Facebook groups, message boards, and figuring out what is trending, except for this, Volker. What's in those message groups, what's in those pages are heavily determined by a few people. So if I write 4 straight articles on Brantford 7, and they're on Costco coming to Brantford, then Costco is going to dominate the conversation on social media. Is it actually dominating the conversation in town? Not necessarily. Do the vast majority of people in town go on Brantford 7? Not necessarily. But I have the biggest social media following. So if the one topic overwhelmingly taking over the biggest social media page in town is Costco, everything getting back to those elected officials would be that. I get to choose who comments. I can block comments. I can delete comments. I'm the moderator. How should I be a source of information? If they want to go and read it and get a sense of it, I'll tell you this, and I know this is true. Elected officials have told me, especially not a town hall necessarily, but other not even elected, but people in town when it came to the firehouse, other projects, when a press release came out, they knew that Brantford 7 would have the most comments. We always did. It was just, that's the nature of the beast. So we post a press release and they would check and they'd go back to see, for example, when the firehouse in Indian Neck was going up, they wanted to know what the reaction was going to be. Some of the firefighters wanted to know if people would be for it or against it. And in fairness, some of the response they built into their application. There was a discussion about some play area in the back or public parking. Those are positive things. But if it were big data comes in, if 2 people fight it out on your page, the result on the town level won't be 50-50. No, I'm guessing it wouldn't be. The question here is the ethical question. One, I don't know how their algorithm works to try to give some accuracy to the issue, but I know this. There are some people in town who dominate the conversation, period. And we have an ability as a moderator of a page to control what that conversation is. That exists. That's real. That's bias. I have bias. Everybody has bias. We are biased by our history, by knowing the players, what we've been through in our lives. We have bias. Then the question becomes, with the bias of social media itself, Facebook and Zuckerberg and all those things. And by the way, if there's any question on that, we can turn on our TVs anytime we want because Congress is hearing against them constantly questioning the bias of social media pages. The second one is the bias of me as a moderator and the moderator of Simply Guilford and Brantford 7 and the Patch and the moderator. We have the ability to delete or delete anything. The Patch writes the same 19 articles 19 times. So over and over, that conversation could be dominated by one side, and then the article could be biased. The information presented that starts the conversation could be biased. The initial post that starts the conversation could be biased. And then we have the bigger question. Should taxpayers be paying for this service? Should taxpayers be paying for information to be taken from social media pages with all the levels of bias that implies and exists, have it aggregated, and then sent back to those elected officials? Period. And if I'm a professional, if I'm an elected official, or I'm trying to push a campaign through, I'm trying to get a bridge built, I'm going to get a school built, I'll go create 37 fake Facebook accounts and comment like crazy. Yes, we want this school. Yes, we want the school. Yes, we want the school. And then some numbers go back to town hall saying, oh, 84% of people want this. That's just of a tiny group of people, many of which are fake, on social media. I have, I think, 7,000 or 8,000 people that follow Brantford 7. There's 28,000 people in town. of elect people who typically elect, vote locally. People read Branford 7 who are not followers. I understand that. We typically, on an average month, we get, it depends. We've had months with impressions on Branford 7 that have reached 120,000 impressions a month. On average, I would say we're about 55,000. It depends on the news cycle. Election season, it can go way up. I'm writing less articles than I used to, but those articles would go on our Facebook page. So the traffic on our Facebook page traffic is higher now because of videos. That's more than articles. But all of these things play a role. And you would give a disproportionate voice to a much smaller group of people. You allow fake accounts to go in and play a role. The moderator gets to play a role. And if somebody starts a Facebook page, we support the schools, does sponsored ads to get likes from everybody in the neighborhood, and then puts biased articles in support of those schools, the information going to the town is going to be biased. But none of this matters. As much as all of this sounds crazy, the question is, should taxpayers be paying for it? That's it. That's the only question. And if we can't, I don't see how anybody comes to the conclusion that taxpayers should be paying a service to aggregate social media information, especially with all the inherent biases that exist. It's absurd. I will get more information on this by Monday and find out what's happening. But if you're in Guilford and you disagree with this being used, or in any town where you disagree with being used, speak up and let us know. Feel free to give us a call or a text message or email, and I'll be glad to take a look. All right, we'll leave it at that. It's been about a half hour. We will talk on Monday a little more about the stimulus package. I'm starting to a point where you're feeling awful. The price that I saw Volcker by that was $12,000. I don't know if that was annually, and that was a few years ago, so it may be up from that. The stimulus package is going nowhere. Mitch McConnell's just not playing ball. I've never seen anything like this. Our unemployment numbers are skyrocketing. The coronavirus numbers are skyrocketing. I don't have words. There is a bipartisan group of Democrats and Republicans supporting the $908 million plan, $908 billion plan. There was enough senators that supported it to pass it. There are enough Democrats to support it to pass it. You can't get Mitch McConnell to play ball. I don't know what's wrong with this guy. At some point, you have to start asking even Republicans, can somebody explain this? When you have numbers spiking like this, you're likely looking at more of a shutdown sometime soon. Unemployment runs out the end of the year for many, many people, millions of people. The deferments on payments, the deferments on evictions run out the end of the year for many, many people. And yet Mitch McConnell refuses to do anything. There's multiple proposals. Nothing comes close to doing anything. And the only thing he'll pass is the $500 billion one, which doesn't do anything. So it does money for businesses, but nothing, no extension of unemployment benefits, no additional money for unemployment, no $1,200 payments, nothing. So I'd love to give everybody better information. I am asked constantly about the stimulus. What do you think is going to happen? I have not seen anything from Mitch McConnell that suggests even for a second he gives a damn about anybody. This is ridiculous. And unfortunately, it's what we're going to have to live with. Because even if it were to pass right now, you're going to have 3 or 4 weeks of trying to implement these things. You're going to go into the next year, and nothing's happening today. They're going to try again next week, from what we heard. So not a very good situation with the stimulus. And as we said before, 90% of the country might be in great shape. They've kept their jobs. They're still being paid. The economy is doing well overall. That 10% losing their jobs will be devastating. And we're seeing it already. The restaurant, you're all seeing these people holding signs, Save Connecticut Restaurants, because it's real. The restaurants are collapsing. They cannot stay open. And that $600 wasn't just helping those families. That $1,200 didn't just help those families. Those families spent that money. And they spent that money at these small restaurants, at these small places, at these businesses that now have 20, 30, 40% less customers. And with nobody able to eat outside, nobody wanting to eat inside, they're going to collapse. I don't know what Mitch McConnell is thinking. I don't know why he's not playing ball. I heard no quote that makes any sense. He keeps giving the "we have to help the American people" crap. yet no actual indication he wants to help the American people. And unfortunately, when you're the head, you get to decide what gets called to a vote. So it's unfortunate. I don't see that any other way. I can look at the initial, proposal by Democrats and say, all right, they put more things in there. But at this point, they narrowed it down. We're down to, at one point it was 2.2 and then it was 1.8. And now they're talking about 908 billion. I'm sorry. It's small. And yes, if Democrats take Georgia, you're looking at probably a $2 or $3 trillion package that passes almost immediately afterwards. And it's looking more and more like Democrats could win Georgia. That said, something has to happen now. When all this stuff runs out at the end of the year, we're in serious trouble. And Mitch McConnell just doesn't want to do it. Okay, that is our last one for the week. We did 3 this week. I know somebody got an email, was pleasant, a supporter, and somebody who has donated to us before, but they get used to seeing the same thing at 4 o'clock, and I wasn't on yesterday. I'll try to do better. We're not in a situation to run reruns, but Steve, he wants to make sure businesses are not sued. I get that, but listen, and I agree with him. I'm okay with some protections, especially temporary protections for businesses. We've talked about this. But that can't be the difference between going to 500 million isn't just because he wants to make businesses not get sued. That's a part of it. Now, the $908 billion plan allowed, 3 months, I believe, for states to come up with some plan. But to go from 2.2 to 1.8, that Mnuchin, by the way, and the White House were debating with Democrats, McConnell wouldn't even play ball with them. Wouldn't even be part of the conversation. Trump has said many times he's for the 1,200 going out to people, and Republicans and McConnell won't move on that. This is not just because of one stipulation. If it was one stipulation, and if that was a stipulation, I'd blame the Democrats. It's not that. It doesn't make sense. It's crazy. There are way too many problems right now. These numbers are going far too high. Unemployment is getting too high. The jobless numbers are going up. And all of these things end at the end of the year. It's just nuts. Now's not the time to be holding hostage a stimulus package that people desperately need. That's on Mitch McConnell. I will see you all on Monday. Thanks for coming. Yes, and I'll try to make sure I go every day at 4 o'clock. The problem becomes, one, there's not always breaking news, and I don't want to just sit here and talk for no reason. There's got to be something to talk about. So if there's questions or issues, send them in. And two, if there's something coming up, we do cover news. So at times I had to run to cover something, so I can't always go live. That said, guys, I hope you have a great weekend. I will see you on Tuesday. Have a great night.